I never thought I'd be that guy, the one standing awkwardly inside a crowded public restroom, trying to do the bare minimum and hoping no one makes eye contact. But there I was, trapped in the tiny, grimy stall of a dive bar's bathroom, clutching my phone like a lifeline, when suddenly I heard it. A whisper. Not the usual rush of water or muffled footsteps. This was deliberate, low, and way too close for comfort. "Hey," the voice said, barely audible but clear enough to freeze me in place. At first, I thought I was losing it. Maybe the place was messing with my head, or maybe I'd had one too many drinks. But then it came again, just a few seconds later, from the stall right next to mine. "Hey, are you okay?" I swallowed hard, my heart pounding so loud I was sure the guy next door could hear it too. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to answer. What kind of person whispers to the stranger in the next bathroom stall? But something about his voice stopped me from just ignoring it. There was a softness to it, a genuine concern that didn't fit with the usual bar creeps or drunk guys just trying to pick a fight. So I whispered back, my voice barely more than a breath. "Yeah, I'm fine." There was a pause. Then, "You sure? You seem kinda shaken." I wasn't used to people noticing how I felt, especially strangers. Usually, I just put on the mask and got through the night. But this guy's voice was different. Calm, steady, somehow comforting. I found myself wanting to say more, even though it felt ridiculous to be talking in a public restroom. I glanced down at my phone, pretending to check messages, but really I was just stalling, trying to figure out what to do next. The bar was loud and packed outside, but in here, it felt like a little bubble where the rest of the world didn't exist. "I guess I'm not totally fine," I admitted quietly. "Just had a rough night." There was a soft chuckle from the next stall. "Yeah, me too. This place tends to do that." For the first time, I caught a glimpse of his personality through those whispered words, like he was trying to break the ice without making it weird. And honestly, it worked. Part of me wanted to keep hiding, but another part wanted to lean in to see where this strange conversation might go. That's when I noticed the faint sound of a zipper and a slight rustle of fabric. He was definitely real. And right there, just a thin wall away, was someone who didn't just want to talk, they wanted to connect. I looked around the cramped stall, suddenly feeling less alone than I had all night. The bar's neon lights buzzed faintly through the cracked door, but inside here, it was just the two of us, sharing a moment nobody else could hear. I took a deep breath and whispered back, "What's your name?" "Ben," he said without hesitation. "Mike," I replied. And that was it. Two strangers, connected by a whisper in a bathroom stall, with nothing but a wall and the night between us. I had no idea how weird or wonderful this was about to get, but right then, it felt like the start of something I didn't want to end. "Mike," I repeated, letting the name settle between us. It felt strange, almost intimate, saying it out loud in a place like this, but somehow it didn't feel awkward at all. "Nice to meet you," Ben whispered back, his tone light but with a hint of something deeper underneath. I could hear his movements now, shifting around in the stall like he was more comfortable talking than just standing there silently. I figured maybe he was exactly the kind of person who'd stay for a conversation in a bathroom instead of rushing out like everyone else. So, I said, trying to keep the mood casual, "What brings you here tonight, Ben? Besides obviously sharing a bathroom wall with a random guy." There was a pause, then a breath. "Honestly, I was meeting a friend, but they bailed last minute. So here I am, drowning my disappointment in a half-assed drink." I chuckled quietly. "Solid plan. Sounds like my night too, minus the bailed friend part." He laughed. Really laughed. A soft sound that echoed through the tight space. Glad I'm not the only one. We fell into a rhythm, whispering back and forth like this was some secret little world just for the two of us. I started to relax, even smiled a bit despite the weird bathroom lighting and the general grossness around us. "I'm guessing you don't usually talk to strangers in public restrooms?" I teased. "Nope," Ben admitted, "but tonight feels different." "Yeah? How so?" "Maybe because I'm tired of pretending everything's perfect. Or maybe because your voice is actually nice to listen to." he added, almost like an afterthought. I smiled wider, feeling a warmth I hadn't expected. Thanks. You're not so bad yourself. That's when the silence stretched a little longer, but it didn't feel uncomfortable. More like we were just soaking in the moment. Two guys connected by a thin wall and a few whispered words. I decided to risk it. Can I ask what you do, Ben? Like, when you're not charming guys in bathroom stalls? There was a subtle shift in his voice, a little pride mixed with hesitation. I'm a graphic designer. Mostly work from home. What about you? Tech support, I replied. Not as glamorous as graphic design, but it pays the bills. I bet you make people's lives easier, he said quietly. That's kind of important. I laughed again. I like that. Makes me sound way more heroic than I feel. As we kept talking, I started imagining what it'd be like to meet him outside these cramped stalls. I pictured a casual conversation over drinks, maybe a real smile instead of just whispered ones, and the kind of easy connection that felt rare. Then, without warning, I heard a flush from his side. I'm almost done here, Ben whispered. I felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. I had no idea why I wanted this conversation to last longer, but I did. Me too, I said softly. There was a moment of silence, and then Ben said, Hey, can I be honest? Always, I replied. I'm glad you didn't just ignore me. I usually don't reach out like this, but something about tonight, I don't know. I felt like talking to someone who might get it. I understood exactly what he meant. Nights like this, when you feel invisible in a crowd, can make you crave any bit of genuine connection. Same here, I said. It's weird how a bathroom stall can feel less lonely than a bar full of people. He chuckled again. Yeah, right? Maybe we should start a support group. Strangers who find friends in the strangest places. I smiled, thinking how absurd that sounded, but also how perfectly it fit. Then came the moment I didn't expect. You want to meet up? Like, actually meet without walls between us? My heart skipped. Part of me wanted to say yes immediately. Another part was still skeptical about taking a stranger's voice at face value. Yeah, I breathed out. I'd like that. We arranged a spot just outside the bar, a quiet corner where we wouldn't be buried in noise or crowds. I stuck out of the stall and washed my hands, suddenly aware of just how sweaty my palms were. Ben was already waiting by the sinks, and when our eyes met, it was like the whispering had stopped and something real had started. He smiled, a little shy but open, and I felt a weird mix of nerves and excitement. Hi, Mike, he said. Hey, Ben, I replied. We shook hands, but it didn't feel like a formal gesture. It felt like the beginning of something neither of us had planned, but maybe both secretly wanted. As we stepped out of the bathroom and back into the noisy bar, I realized that night was already turning into one I'd never forget. And honestly, I couldn't wait to see where it went next. We moved out into the main part of the bar, and immediately the noise hit us. Laughter, music, clinking glasses. It was the kind of loud that could swallow you whole, but somehow, standing next to Ben, it felt less overwhelming. Like we were in our own little bubble, even with all the chaos around. We found a quieter corner, a small booth tucked away from the thick of things. My heart was still doing that stupid flutter thing, the kind that feels like a mix of excitement and nerves all rolled into one. I tried to play it cool, but probably failed spectacularly. Ben slid in across from me, eyes curious but calm. So, he said, now that we're not whispering in bathroom stalls, what's the first thing you want to know about me? I smirked. Are you always this mysterious, or only when you're hiding behind a stall wall? He laughed, real and sincere. Only when I'm trying to make a memorable first impression. I raised an eyebrow. Well, it's working. We ordered drinks. Ben went for a whiskey neat. I stuck with a beer, and the conversation started rolling. Easy and natural. He told me about his work, how designing gave him a way to express things he found hard to put into words otherwise. I shared stories about tech support nightmares and the weirdest customer calls I'd ever gotten. At some point, the topic shifted to family, and I found myself opening up more than I expected. I told him about growing up in a small town where being gay was something you kept under wraps, a secret you carried like a weight. Ben listened, really listened, and then shared bits about his own experience, how moving to the city had felt like finally breathing after years of holding his breath. There was something comforting about this exchange, like we were filling in pieces of a puzzle that hadn't quite fit before. The bar started to get busier, but the noise didn't bother me anymore. I was too focused on Ben's laugh, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his passions, the subtle shift in his expression when he caught mine across the table. At one point, he reached out and lightly brushed a stray hair off my forehead. The touch was brief, but it sent a jolt straight through me. "Sorry," he said, a little shy. "I don't mean to be forward." "No, it's nice," I said, my voice a little uneven. That moment hung between us, electric and delicate, and I realized I wanted to see where it could go. We talked for hours, swapping stories and dreams, and by the time the bar was closing, there was no question in my mind that I wanted to keep this night alive. Outside, the city was cooler, the air crisp and fresh after a warm evening. We stood on the sidewalk, neither of us quite ready to say goodbye. So, Ben said, glancing at me with a slight smile, "What now?" I shrugged, feeling ridiculously hopeful. "Maybe we grab coffee sometime? Or something less bathroom adjacent?" He laughed. "I'd like that." We exchanged numbers, and I felt a strange mix of excitement and disbelief. A night that started in a bathroom stall had turned into something I wasn't ready to let go of. As I walked away, my phone buzzed. A message from Ben. "Thanks for talking." "Really?" I smiled and typed back. "Me too. Can't wait for round 2. No stalls involved." That was the start of something new. Something that made me think maybe, just maybe, strangers whispering in bathrooms could lead to real connections after all. A few days passed after that night, and honestly, I kept replaying the bathroom stall conversation in my head more than I cared to admit. It was weird how a whispered chat between two strangers could stick with you so hard. But Ben's voice, his laugh, the way he made me feel like I wasn't just some guy passing through a noisy bar, kept sneaking into my thoughts. When his message pinged on my phone, I felt this rush of excitement that was part nerves, part something else I wasn't quite ready to name yet. We'd agreed on coffee, nothing fancy, just a casual meetup to see if the connection held up outside the bathroom. The day of, I kept checking the mirror, adjusting my shirt more than necessary, trying to look like I wasn't about to freak out over a simple coffee date. I'm not exactly a smooth guy when it comes to this stuff, so I was counting on Ben's easy vibe to balance out my awkwardness. When I got to the little cafe we picked, some hole-in-the-wall place with good reviews but nothing pretentious, he was already there, sitting in the corner by the window, scrolling through his phone. The sunlight caught his hair just right, and I swear, for a second, I forgot how to breathe. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat opposite him. "Hey, Mike." He smiled without looking up at first, then his eyes met mine. "I was just thinking about our bathroom chat. Still can't believe that actually happened." "Right? Who knew a bathroom stall could be the start of something?" I laughed, suddenly feeling more at ease. We ordered coffee and sat there, the conversation picking up just where it left off. Except now, we had the luxury of eye contact without the awkwardness of whispering. I learned that Ben was way more into indie movies than I expected, and he had this dry sense of humor that caught me off guard in the best way. I told him about my obsession with old vinyl records, something I'd never shared with anyone before because it felt, I don't know, uncool. But he actually seemed interested, asking questions and laughing when I admitted I'd spent a shameful amount on a rare Bowie record last year. The more we talked, the more I realized how comfortable I was around him. It wasn't just the conversation, it was the way he listened without waiting to jump in, like he genuinely cared about what I was saying. At one point, I caught him watching me with this soft expression, and before I could chicken out, I asked, "What's going on in that head of yours?" He shrugged, looking a little bashful. "Just thinking how lucky I am to have met you. Sounds cheesy, I know." I shook my head, grinning. "No, it's not cheesy. I've been feeling the same way." There was a pause, charged and a little electric, like the air between us had thickened. Then he reached across the table, his hand brushing mine. The touch was light, tentative, but it sent a jolt straight through my chest. "Want to get out of here?" he asked softly. I wanted nothing more. We left the cafe and wandered the streets as the afternoon sun dipped lower. We didn't have a destination. We just walked, talking about everything and nothing. The city around us blurred into the background as we fell into an easy rhythm. At some point, we found ourselves in a small park, the kind with weathered benches and fading autumn leaves scattered on the ground. We sat down side by side, and for a long moment, the silence was comfortable, not awkward. "Can I be honest again?" Ben asked. I nodded, already knowing the answer. This feels different from anything I've had before. Like, I don't want to mess this up. I smiled, feeling the same fear and hope swirling inside me. Me too. It's scary, but in a good way. He turned to face me, eyes serious but warm. "I don't want this to be just a fling or some bar story we forget about. I want to see where this goes." I swallowed, heart pounding in a way that felt more like promise than panic. "I want that too." That's when he leaned in slowly, like asking permission, and I met him halfway. Our lips touched, soft and tentative at first, then a little deeper as the world around us faded away. It wasn't perfect or cinematic, just two guys figuring it out. Nervous hands, shaky breaths, and an overwhelming sense that this was exactly where we were supposed to be. When we finally pulled apart, Ben rested his forehead against mine and whispered, "I'm really glad you didn't just ignore me in that bathroom." "Me too," I said, feeling like I'd been waiting for this moment without even knowing it. We sat there for a while longer, watching the sky turn golden pink, and I realized something. Sometimes the strangest beginnings lead to the most unexpected and beautiful stories. And I was ready to write this one with him. After that kiss in the park, everything felt different, like the world had shifted on its axis just enough for me to notice. I kept replaying it in my head, how his lips felt soft and warm, the way his hand found mine and held on like he didn't want to let go. It was the kind of moment you expect to happen in movies, but here we were, both awkwardly real, figuring it out one breath at a time. We sat there for a while longer, neither of us rushing to break the silence. Finally, Ben sighed and looked over at me with that half-shy, half-serious smile of his. "So what now, Mike? Are we supposed to make some kind of grand plan or just keep winging it?" I laughed, because honestly, I didn't have a clue. I'm usually the wing it type, but I'm happy to try planning if it means more moments like this. He chuckled, squeezing my hand. "Good, because I want to see you again. A lot." I nodded. Same here. The next few weeks were a blur in the best possible way. We went from texting every day to hanging out in person as much as we could. Sometimes it was low-key stuff. Lazy Sunday brunches, wandering around local bookstores, or just sitting on my couch watching terrible TV shows and making fun of the plot holes. Other times, we went out dancing or tried new restaurants, laughing at how neither of us was particularly coordinated on the dance floor, but having a blast regardless. What surprised me was how natural it all felt. With Ben, I didn't have to pretend or hold back pieces of myself. I could be goofy or serious, vulnerable or confident, and it was all okay. He matched me step for step, sharing his own quirks and insecurities without hesitation. One night, we were sitting on the roof of my apartment building, wrapped in a blanket under a sky full of stars. It was quiet, except for the distant hum of the city, and I felt this calm settle over me like I hadn't known was possible. Ben nudged me with his shoulder and said, "I never thought I'd find something like this. I mean, I've dated before, but it always felt missing something." I looked at him, really looked, and saw the honesty shining in his eyes. "Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like I was waiting for someone to see me, not just look at me." He smiled softly and reached for my hand. "I see you, Mike. All of you." I felt my throat tighten, and for a moment, words failed me. Instead, I leaned in and kissed him gently, feeling all the things I'd been holding back start to pour out. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Every relationship has its bumps, and we had ours too. There was that night when I got jealous over nothing. A silly misunderstanding about a text Ben received from an old friend. Instead of talking, I shut down, letting the doubt creep in like unwanted static. Ben didn't give up. The next day, he sat me down and patiently unraveled the mess inside my head. "Mike, I'm here. You don't have to be afraid of me or what I might think." It hit me how lucky I was to have someone willing to stick around, even when things got messy. "Thanks for not giving up," I said quietly. He smiled, brushing my hair back from my forehead. "You're worth it." Those moments made me realize that love isn't just about butterflies and perfect kisses. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. One chilly Saturday, we decided to take a day trip out of the city to a nearby lake. We packed a picnic, grabbed a blanket, and spent the afternoon hiking and exploring. The air was crisp, and the trees were just starting to turn those fiery autumn colors. Ben kept stealing glances at me, that same soft smile tugging at his lips. At the lake, we found a quiet spot on the shore and sat side by side, watching the water shimmer in the late afternoon light. I turned to him and said, "I'm really glad you whispered to me in that bathroom stall." He laughed, the sound light and full of warmth. "Me too. If you'd ignored me, none of this would have happened." "Yeah, that's kind of crazy to think about." He nodded, then reached out to squeeze my hand. Sometimes the weirdest moments lead to the best things. I squeezed back, feeling like this was one of those best things. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, we leaned into each other, the world shrinking down until it was just us and the quiet lapping of the water. In that moment, I realized how much I had been holding back, not just from others, but from myself. Ben had helped me open a door I didn't know was there, and now I wasn't looking back. We stayed there until the stars came out again, wrapped in a blanket and each other's arms, knowing that whatever came next, we'd face it together. And honestly, that was more than enough. The days after that lake trip settled into a kind of rhythm I hadn't realized I wanted so badly. Work, weekends with Ben, lazy mornings where the sunlight spilled across my sheets and he was still asleep beside me. It felt normal, but in the best way. Like, this was how it was supposed to be. But as much as I wanted to live inside that bubble forever, life has a way of throwing curveballs, doesn't it? One Thursday evening, a few weeks later, I was sitting at my desk scrolling through emails when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ben, short and kind of vague. "Can we talk tonight? It's important." My chest tightened immediately. "Important usually isn't good." I texted back, "Yeah, of course." "Want me to come over or meet somewhere?" "Let's do dinner. 7 at that place you liked." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my mind from spiraling. The place I liked was a small Italian joint where we'd had one of our first dinners together. Cozy, warm, perfect for serious talks or just feeling safe. At 7, I slid into the booth across from him, noticing the way his fingers fidgeted with the napkin. He looked different, tense, maybe a little scared. "Hey," I said softly. "What's going on?" Ben took a deep breath, eyes flicking up to meet mine, then away again. "I got a job offer. Out of state." My heart dropped. "Oh, yeah," he said quickly. "It's a great opportunity, way better pay, more creative freedom, but it's in Seattle." I didn't want to tell you until I was sure, but now I'm stuck. The word hung between us like a thick fog. Stuck. It felt like a punch in the gut. "Seattle," I repeated. "That's far. Too far." He nodded. "I know, and I don't want to lose what we have." I reached across the table, taking his hand in mine. "Neither do I." We sat there for a long time, talking about all the possibilities and uncertainties. Could we do long distance? Would it work? Did we even want to try? Ben looked exhausted, haunted by the decision he'd been wrestling with alone. "I don't want to hold you back," he said finally. "But I also don't want to walk away from this, from us. I don't want to lose you either," I admitted, "but I don't want you to give up your dreams for me." He smiled a little, eyes wet. "Maybe dreams can change." It wasn't an easy conversation, and it didn't magically solve anything that night. But for the first time, we were facing the future together, with all the messiness that came with it. Over the next few days, we started looking at options, weekend visits, video calls, finding ways to keep close even while apart. It wasn't perfect, but it felt real. Like love wasn't about avoiding hard things, but working through them. I remember one night, after a long day of back and forth planning, Ben sent me a voice message. "Hey, Mike. I know this isn't what either of us expected, but somehow I feel like we can make this work. I'm scared, but also hopeful. And that's thanks to you." I listened to it over and over, grinning like an idiot, feeling the warmth of his words wrap around me even when we were miles apart. When the day came for him to leave, we met at the airport, holding on to each other like it was a lifeline. The goodbye was hard. Tears, promises, tight hugs, but beneath it all was this quiet certainty that this wasn't the end. "Call me when you get there," I said, voice cracking. "Always," he whispered back. And just like that, the distance was real, but so was what we shared. We fell into a new kind of rhythm. Late-night calls, sharing little moments through photos and texts, planning visits months in advance. It wasn't easy. There were lonely nights and moments of doubt. But every time I heard his voice, it reminded me that what we had was worth fighting for. One evening, about 2 months in, I was lying on my couch after a long day when my phone buzzed with a video call from Ben. I answered instantly. "Hey," he said, grinning, a little tired but glowing. "Guess who just signed a lease?" My heart jumped. "You?" "Yeah, in the city. I'm moving back." I can't even explain the rush that hit me then. The relief, the joy, the overwhelming happiness all tangled up together. "Ben," I choked out, laughing and crying at the same time. "That's amazing." He smiled, his eyes shining. I figured there's no way I'm letting this go. Not without trying everything to make it work. It felt like a new chapter opening up, one full of possibility and hope. The kind that starts in the strangest places. A bathroom stall, whispered words, and grows into something real, messy, and beautiful. And honestly, I can't wait to see where it takes us next. Then moving back wasn't some instant fix or fairy tale ending. It meant adjustments, compromises, and more honest conversations than I ever thought I'd be capable of. But the difference was, we were in it together. No more whispers from bathroom stalls, no more screens between us. Just two guys figuring out how to build something real. The day he arrived, I picked him up from the airport with a nervous grin and a handful of flowers that felt way too cheesy, but somehow perfect. Seeing him walk toward me, suitcase in hand, that same smile from our first coffee date lighting up his face, it hit me just how far we'd come. "Welcome home," I said softly. He dropped his bags, pulled me close, and just held me for a long moment. No words were necessary. That hug said it all. Over the weeks that followed, our lives started weaving together in a new pattern, settling into routines. Little rituals like making breakfast on Sundays or debating which playlist to blast during road trips. The city didn't feel so big anymore. It felt like ours. One evening, as we sat on my balcony watching the sun slip below the skyline, Ben reached for my hand, fingers intertwining with a familiarity that felt like home. "You know," he said, "I never imagined a night in a bathroom stall would lead to all this." I laughed, squeezing his hand. "Me neither, but I'm glad it did." He turned to look at me, eyes warm and steady. Neither of us had it all figured out back then. Maybe that's the point. Finding someone who's just as willing to figure it out with you. I nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude for every twist and stumble that brought us here. "Here's to figuring it out," I said, lifting an imaginary glass. Ben grinned. "To us." We stayed there for a while, wrapped up in the quiet comfort of the moment and the knowledge that whatever came next, we'd face it side by side. Looking back, it's funny how something as random and vulnerable as whispered words in a bathroom stall turned into the most unexpected gift of my life. Sometimes connection shows up when you least expect it, in the strangest places, from the quietest voices. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to listen, it can change everything.